new electronic petition on the House of Commons website is actually gaining attention, Gary. It's calling for all federal party leaders to obtain high-level security clearance. It was launched by a resident of Manotick, Ontario, and authorized by Liberal MP Bruce Fanjoy in the Carleton riding, once held by Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. The bigger question isn't the petition itself. It's what it says about trust, transparency, and political risk in Canada today, Gary.
Yeah, I tried to track down the individual who originally filed the petition, because the House of Commons does not put that kind of information. They put the name, but they don't put an address or contact information on the website. And I couldn't, even using Facebook, I couldn't really sort through it. I did reach out to MP Fanjoy, and I'm still waiting for a response to my email. So anyhow, what I would like to do, though, is just flip over to the website so that you can see it. So here is the signature, or the petition, I should say. It's electronic, and I'll just bring it up in full right now. All right, so if you go into the House of Commons website, you'll find an area where they have it set up for petitions, electronic petitions. And this is E7148, and it is a petition to the House of Commons. And I'm going to try, I should have printed off a copy, silly me. Anyway, it does say, Canada faces increasing national security risks in a complex and shifting geopolitical landscape, and the Canadian Security Intelligence Service warns that political parties, elected officials, and candidates are potential targets for foreign interference. And it goes on from there. And what it is aimed at is to make it mandatory for all party leaders, federal party leaders, to be cleared at a certain high level, security-wise. Now, Prime Minister is Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has, to this point, refused. He has refused, and his line of reasoning has been, if I submit to that and I'm briefed on something, I won't be able to ask questions about it in public. Well, yeah. If you're briefed at a high level of security, you shouldn't be asking questions about it in public at that particular point. I'm not sure if...
I don't get that statement either. I tried to listen to him and kind of read between the lines of what he's trying to say, but it just doesn't make sense, Gary.
Well, I know. And it's not uncommon in certain situations for the Prime Minister to speak to the leaders of the various parties. But if you have one who's not security level cleared at all, it's pretty hard for you, and it happens to be the leader of the opposition, it's pretty hard for you to do that. Although you might have a certain level of security clearance and the Prime Minister has higher, and he may mention something from that higher level, but you're still at your security level. You're still not supposed to say anything outside of the four walls. So in this particular case, I am not going after the leader of the opposition. That's his choice. That's the choice he has made. What the petition is saying is that they get enough signatures, it shows a large number of Canadians, majority of Canadians, want their party leaders to have this security level of clearance. And even, if something comes up, as the petition states, about if there's, CSIS has an indication foreign interference with your party or foreign interference with some of your party members, they can brief you on that and bring you into the fold to discuss how to remedy the situation.
Yeah. Well, doesn't it add a certain level of complexity to Pierre Poilievre's thinking? What if he was the Prime Minister of Canada and you have CSIS and all these intelligence agencies that are out doing their work? I mean, they have an utmost commitment to secrecy when it comes to defending Canada. What are they going to say? I know he's the Prime Minister of Canada, but he hasn't been cleared security-wise. How do we know he's not in cahoots with somebody else across the world, across the ocean? And should we be giving him any information? So I'm just speaking very out of the box here, but Gary, that for me as a Canadian citizen, look, that it's his choice what he wants to do, absolutely,
Yeah.
right? And I'm always on, this particular case, Pierre Poilievre, but the opposition parties. I want the opposition parties to be strong and hold the government accountable. In this particular case, it happens to be Pierre Poilievre, right? How can he do his job properly if A, he doesn't have the security clearance, B, the Prime Minister of Canada at this particular point in time may have been providing updates to opposition party leaders in terms of what is going on in Canada that's supposed to happen between the four walls and closed doors. And he may not be telling Pierre Poilievre because he doesn't have the security clearance. So A, Poilievre won't know what he's not being told. And B, how can he effectively govern after or lead the opposition party after something comes out that, okay, now we're going to be coming out and making this public, which happens quite often. At the beginning, it's a secret. Later on, it does come out for discussion and letting the public know what's been going on. What is he going to do? Well, they didn't tell me and make a big issue out of it. Well, you don't have your security clearance. So that's the first thought that comes to my mind. You're absolutely right. It's his choice. But as we mentioned very often, there are consequences that come along with individual choices. And this just happens to be one. You've got a high profile position in this government. You and I are paying his salary, Gary. And I think from an expectation perspective, myself personally, I would like the leaders of our country to have security clearance. Okay, in layman's terms, for example, Gary, I've worked in the aeronautic industry and managed airports. Okay, I had to get security clearance. My frontline technicians had to get security clearance. Okay, my manager of my command center had to get security clearance, even though he never set foot in an airport. My jobs after that, I had to get security clearance. I had nothing to do with the government. It was a Canadian company. Other positions, people that I've been hiring, they'll go through security. They'll go through a background check, and all background checks usually have a security component in it. So if regular citizens need to go through this process as part of the hiring process, why on God's green earth do we not expect that from the people who are leaders within our governments? Whether, you know what, let's go from municipal, go provincial, why not? But federal, there should be absolutely zero question. You want to hold a seat in the House of Commons, you have to have a security clearance check. That's my opinion as a citizen. I'm just seeing it as something that's hampering our government in terms of Pierre Poilievre choosing not to do so. He can do whatever he wants, but at the same time, I'm paying part of your salary, and I would like for you to explain why you can't get it in real terms. None of this cloak and dagger clouded reason why you decide personally you don't have to go for this. It should not be a question. I think it's something you need to do to get my trust. And I'm just one of hundreds of thousands of people that I'm sure share the same opinion.
And that does bring up a good point, Eddie, as to the trust factor. And we have, Monel says, what is PP hiding? Maybe he can't get a clearance. And well, it could be that too. Who knows? But anyhow, and then Deborah says, I had to have protected B security clearance to be able to file and work on plans and specifications for RCMP detachments. So why are government officials allowed to go without? And that, I mean, I used to have to get security clearances all the time, like covering the prime minister when he came to town. The Point Lepreau nuclear generating station, whenever you went near there. There was just royal visits, just a host of different things that I had to have a certain level of security clearance. And then my father, when we were growing up, my father working at Base Gagetown, Department of National Defense, and he had a high-level NATO security clearance. Even what we were doing in school as kids, like that all factored into the overall review that they would do as part of the security clearance. It's just, it's a given, in my estimation now, for a number of things. And especially if you have Canadian companies that are working abroad, and with everything that's going on now with the foreign interference in elections and the process, the bots, working, Russian bots and Chinese bots working on social media platforms, trying to wear down the population. It's all there. And man, like, to me, as an elected official, and I say right from your municipal level right on through, there should be a certain level of security clearance along the way, because even at the municipal level, you could end up on a municipal committee or planning committee or whatever, and you're dealing with the Defense Department for a new secret bunker or something.
Or you're dealing with the local mob who might be in cahoots with some dealer someplace. You don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, right? You just don't know. So to me, it's not only at the federal level. I think that at all levels of elected government, there should be, if there's not in place already, there should be some kind of a stepping, stone kind of security levels for clearance all the way through. And as you get higher in the organization, then you may have to step up your security level. And it was amazing. Deborah mentioned about her security clearance. The amount of information she had to submit on family and friends and all of that kind of stuff, and then go through a 3 or 4 hour interview at RCMP headquarters. Like it was no piece of cake. That's for sure.
That actually reminds me, my brother-in-law, I won't say which law enforcement agency he works in, but when he applied for the job, I actually spent about 45 minutes on the call with this particular agency as an exercise to vet his security clearance. And he's not a police officer by any means, but I had to support him with a 45-minute discussion with somebody on the other end asking me specifically about my brother-in-law. So he's not a law enforcement officer or an agent of any sort, but I in support of someone applying for a job that has implications where there's security information floating around. He may never see himself. He still had to be cleared, and they went down to family members. So why are we basically giving a pass to any of our politicians or anybody in power, like you said, municipal, provincial, or in federal? Anybody sitting in that house, either on the floor up at the Senate, they should all be cleared. In my view, Gary, there shouldn't be any exceptions.
Absolutely, and even with I'm glad you mentioned the Senate because it's an unelected body, so they're appointed. By all means, they should be vetted.
Well, here's an interesting thing too, though. And this is an open-ended question for you. Do you think that when Carney and his ministers and his cabinet deal with their counterparts in other countries, do you think there's a certain level of expectation by the Canadian government that the elected officials in said country that our ministers are dealing with also have passed security clearance, and vice versa? When our Canadian delegates visit other countries, France, for example, do they have an expectation that the people they're dealing with are cleared? They got security clearance? Because security clearance isn't just about internal affairs of Canada. This also extends to everybody around the world, the Russias, the Chinas, and whatever else. Do you think France wants to talk to somebody in Canada that has not been cleared from a security perspective with the suspicions that there might be some ongoing discussions with other foreign countries? It just dawned on me just now. What are the expectations, one way or the other?
I would think that when they're getting into the right down into the weeds of a high level discussion, that they would expect those people to have a certain level of security clearance. And I would think that that would be all, prearranged long before wheels up in Canada heading for France and the meeting. We're all members of NATO. There's a certain level of security required as far as NATO is concerned, and it just goes on. It goes, snowballs from there. So I would think they do. I would hope they do, for sure.
Well, my point exactly. Can you imagine if Pierre Poilievre was the Prime Minister of Canada and he went on his first foreign mission? I think Carney's first one was to the UK, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. And they basically said, no, we can't have discussions with you. You haven't been cleared security wise. What kind of a national embarrassment would that be? I mean, it's a possibility. Macron basically said, hey, I'm not talking to you. You haven't got security clearance. Yep. Yes, you are. Your country is part of NATO, but you haven't got security clearance. I mean, that would be an absolute embarrassment to the country. And I would encourage the Pierre Poilievre, since he watches our show on a regular basis, to take our comments to heed. I mean, it's very important, sir. You got to do what you need to do for the sake of the country. Otherwise, I'm just going to think about myself, along with a lot of Canadians, are going to think this entire exercise of not getting your security clearance suspicious. Let's put it that way.
I'll come back to 3 questions that we'll leave on the table for folks to think about and maybe comment on, because we do have some breaking news here, I believe. Yeah, off-topic breaking news. Manel says the U.S. Congress voted yes to remove the 25% tariffs on Canada.
Holy poop!
Yeah. How's this one going to go down? Can't wait for.
Yeah, does El Presidente have to sign off on it, or can he just push this through?
Or just ignore it, as he does a lot of other things.
Or just ignore it. Yeah, exactly. You know what? Just because of that, he's going to put another 15% on us.
So it remains to be seen. I mean, he's got his Stanfield's in a knot anyway over the Gordie Howe Bridge. So.
That's you know what, Gary? That's another show for sure.
Well, especially when you consider that he was all for it back in his first term.
Yeah.
Remember? Mm-hmm. And as he was with the Kuzma deal or the USMCA, depending which side of the border you're on. And that's all gone out the window.
He had a 4 a.m. bowel movement, Gary.
Yeah, he's still smarting over the Doug Ford saying he's not putting any more liquid or liquor, U.S. liquor on the shelves, and smarting over the ads that Ontario ran, I think. So, okay, now we do have another comment which goes a little off topic, but the name was brought up, so let's go. Have a gander here. So Free West says Pierre will be the first president of Western Canada. The fool in Mexico explains why. Or, yeah, that is fool. Yeah. Fool in Mexico explains why. The first president of Western Canada. So maybe that's why he might be holding out on his Canadian security clearance.
Mm-hmm.
He'll need one for Alberta, maybe.
No, when the fool in Mexico, surely he's not the person's not referring to me. He's referring to President Sheinbaum. Yeah.
I think it was a shot at you, Eddie.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
There have been a few my way. Oh, my favorite comment from last week was where I was compared to the guy on Family Guy. I told you about that one. I just can't remember what the guy's name was.
Yeah, that was my mistake. Thank you, Free West. I appreciate that comment. Thanks for watching.
All right, so I'm going to leave these 3 questions here to wrap up this part of the conversation. And that is, should party leaders be required to access classified intelligence? In some cases, I would say in a number of cases, yes. Is refusal a transparency issue or a political shield? That's the $64 question right there.
Mm-hmm.
And could this set a precedent for candidate vetting nationally? I think that if you're going to offer for office, and again, it goes through the 3 levels of government, municipal, provincial, federal, I think you should be vetted. That should be part of the process in putting your name forward, that you be vetted so that everyone knows what they're dealing with and what they're getting or not getting. But I think that should actually be, especially now, that should actually be one of the official requirements is you must be vetted at, and it does not necessarily have to be a high level of security, but you must be vetted through some kind of a security clearance. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that.